Good day and welcome back. So now it's time to move on and finish off the Night Titan. Now, just to recall, this image right here is pretty much what I'm kind of going for. This is what's in my head. So we need to go ahead and get finishing putting up the detail pieces on the Knight and get it on its base. So let's transition to that and get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this dark earth and we're going to cover up the white sculpted mold that was stuck to the thing from when I placed it in. And I'm also going to mark up a bunch of the machine, because there's mud splashing and so forth. So I want this thing to be dirty, mucky, and messy. Once we do that, now we're going to flock it. So I want to get that vegetable growth or stuff, right? So we take this watered down PVA and flocking, and the first thing I do is there's a bunch of sections where I just paint it. So I get places where I want it really, really heavily vegetated, my word, but covered in thick vegetation. And then I skip to the splatter method where, it's like splattering mud specks on a tank. Just splatter those through there and then go through. And we get a bunch of this stuff all over it, right? Because I want this thing just have it covered with vegetation in random spots, right? So, and this is kind of what we end up with. Once we get there, we let that dry, and then we move on to the fun part, which is doing the oils. And this is just like all the other filter painting that we do. Now I very intentionally use this bright green and go back and mix it with yellow, and when that melds, it gets this sickly green look to the areas where the oil sits in, and that's what I'm after. And then later, as to tone them down, I go back and I hit them with brown, and like right here on the shoulders where we see a lot of this, right? So we'll come in and we'll hit spaces where this changes the color of the flock. It makes the thing all blend in together. We come in and we just do this just like we're going to filter any other armor plating, and that creates that shading that I'm looking for when when I'm working on getting some realism into the panels. And that's kind of the beauty of oils, is you get to get all these really different shades that are really, really well faded, and it's a wonderful, wonderful look. Then it's time to get it on the base. Now the places where the wires come up through, they've got a bunch of the sculpted mold and paint and things in. So the first thing I got to do is get solder onto those parts so that I can connect the Knight to the places. But so once I get solder onto the pieces, I bring power, and then we just put the wires on to make sure that we get, so the connections are going to work. And that takes just a little bit of fiddly practice. And we do that, get that in. Then once I get all this squared up, and we're certain that the wires aren't going to disconnect, which obviously you see they did, we get this put together, we get the feet mounted in place, then we go back and we just lock it all in. We use some more of that dark earth to pretty much lock the Knight in, and then we let that dry, because once that dries, then we can move on to our next steps. Okay, and that's kind of where we are for the moment. Okay, all this stuff works. On to the next step. Okay, with the Knight based and put in and locked in now, and we've got use the dark earth to get my mud built up around it. There's some areas on it I'm not entirely happy with, like right here. Right, there's it's kind of going the wrong way, but we're going to fix that, because we're going to go ahead and do a little bit more. So again, we use the AK Terrain's dark earth for that piece. So now I'm going to go back and I'm going to use this stuff. So this is just a heavy gel medium, and we're going to basically wet all this. I was going to try and use water effects, but I couldn't get my hands on water effects soon enough. Basically it was yeah, I just couldn't get the water effects. So now I'm going to go ahead and do this, and we'll see how this goes. So essentially I'm going to do the same thing I did for like the water from a ship model, and I'll lay down layers of clear stuff. This is just basically a gel, and this creates a thicker, heavy layer that ends up being clear and giving us a nice mud look, right? So first thing I do is I get this down, and then we let that dry. Once that's dry, now I'll go to Mod Podge. Now this, when that dried out, right, it's still clear and glossy, but the Mod Podge really gives it that wet look. So I just go through and I hit all of the places where I want it to look like wet mud with the Mod Podge. Then I also hit the machine. I get it up in the feed. I also get it up on, actually on the knight itself, because I want places where either wet oil or splashes of wet. And then when it dries, that all looks like wet mud or wet surface. And there we go. With that, we are going to call the Possessed Night Titan done. I'm moderately happy with how it came out. I definitely learned a lot of things as I was working on it. There are some things I would do differently if I did it again, but it was fun to do. I got the dynamic look that I wanted, which was kind of in my head, this pushing the tree branch out of the way and breaking it, getting the tree branch to look, sort of swamp-y, kind of like the one picture I saw. It's not as heavily overgrown as I had in my head, but I kind of shot the middle, right? I went for the atmosphere on the base without actually building this as a diorama. I built this so that it actually could be put on the gaming table. At some point, I might redo something like that and build this up in a way that's, just part of a diorama. But in this instance, I was, I sort of shot the middle with that. The one thing I'm a little disappointed in is I didn't go for the still water. I couldn't get my hands on it. It was delayed, and I wasn't going to sit and wait for the thing to get here. So I will pick another project to try. So that's the plug that I have in there, and then this is what it ends up looking like as it's plugged in, and you can see the lights there breathe. And same thing happens, the one up at the top, fades in and out, which is pretty much what I was looking for. The glow on the machine coming down from the shoulders and the sides gives me kind of close to what I was after. So I was kind of content with it. I will go ahead and put up a couple pictures of, sort of scenic shots and better, beauty shots, as it were, of this one here. And then we're going to call this one done. I will now move on to my next project. I hope that this was an entertaining and informative project to follow along with. I appreciate you coming along with me. Please, again, feel free to offer up suggestions if you wish. I'm always interested in learning and listening. And until next time, as always, happy modeling. Thank you.